G'day everyone, welcome to New Tech. My name's Miles and it's great to have you here. In today's video we're going to be checking out my LED projects, so stay tuned. Well, I hope you enjoyed my opening video today. I thought I'd try something in a little bit of a different format, so feel free to comment and give me some feedback about the opening. Now, these are my LED projects I've been working on really hard, probably for the past year or so. Now, a lot of them have just been kind of quick projects that I thought up at that moment and decided to follow through. And as you can see, that they turned out really, really nice. And I also know that some of these projects aren't probably as pretty as I imagined at the beginning and might not be everyone's cup of tea, but there's some really cool stuff that's happening here and I wanted to share with you today. So I'm going to start off a while back, probably about a year or more ago. I started with this little light here. Now this is just using filament LEDs. Now if you've used filament LEDs or if you've seen them before, they're just a really short little LED and it's like a bar that lights up. Now these ones here I'm using, I think they're a 5-volt LED, and the issue with those type of LEDs is that they only come in one color per filament, and you can see here that that's turned out really, really nicely. Now this is a concept that I thought up with using specific type of wiring. I came up with some really cool ideas with especially the PCB design. I kind of got a bit gritty with the PCB design. It turned out to be a bit of Mad Max style PCB, but I really enjoy it and it looks really cool as well. So I had a lot of fun with doing these, and what you'll notice that as I go through today's video, you'll see that a lot of the projects today are done with WLED. Now the reason why I've chosen WLED for all these projects is that it's super simple to set up and it uses an ESP32, which is super cheap to run, and I can run it over Wi-Fi and control everything via my phone. So if you are into LEDs and you haven't heard about it, go check out the website because it's some really cool stuff. They also have a Discord as well, which has a lot of different projects that people have been doing, and there's some amazing projects up there. So this is a project that I did ages ago, and I wanted to kind of develop this idea a little bit further and try some other type of LEDs. So I wanted to start off by explaining to you about my style of LEDs and kind of why I've gone down that path to create a lot, especially with this one over here, and I'll talk about that one in a second. But years ago, I bought this LED panel. Now, I bought this is a WS2812 LED panel. In other words, that every one of these chips, they have an addressable chip on them, so they can all be controlled individually. Now, I bought this one a while back, and honestly, it's just been sitting in my cupboard in the original packaging. I thought, well, I'm going to get it out and have a bit of a play. And look, it's really cool. Like every LED lights up, and I'll turn that on for you now so you can see the idea behind it. Now every LED lights up and it looks amazing, but one thing that I didn't like about it was this very 2D LED effect. And as much as these look cool as a flat effect, I really wanted to kind of push the idea a bit further and create something with a little bit more 3 dimensions, because once you start putting in dimensions, you start to bring it into the reality. And anyway, so that's kind of what's happening in my head. So traditionally what people would do was to get a panel like this and make it 3-dimensional by just turning it into a simple sphere. And then that's creating a really nice 3D effect. So I've got this little setup that I can show you what that might look like. So this 3D printed base, it does take a little bit to get it on, but once they're in, they're pretty secure and it kind of holds that shape quite nicely. Now, as you can see already, that it has improved that 2D shape, but obviously something that a lot of people do as well is they put a kind of a diffuser or something to ensure that those LEDs, they kind of spread out a bit more. They kind of spread out a bit more, just like using this diffuser here, and it creates this really nice pattern. So this is all 3D printed. It's just a little side project that I put together for today's video just to show you the idea. Now, I liked this, but I thought there was so much more that I could do with this idea, turning an LED into a 3-dimensional sculpture or effect. Now, you probably already know about the Vegas sphere that they have over there, one that's really popular in the media, and you can see that there is a whole lot of different effects that they can put onto it, and it looks quite incredible. And I was thinking about, that's a cool idea, but there's not much that you can do with it, especially if I just made it for a home use, like having like a little dome to sit on the table. And it was like, what do I do with it once I've created it? Where do I put it? it. So I thought a bit further and I thought, well, I really like the idea of 3 dimensions, but I don't like a sphere. So the only other logical shape that I could come up with is really this torus shape, or the donut. This in itself was such a great achievement for me to get through. Now this here is made from these really cool WS2812. They're an 8mm dome LED. Now they come individually, and to be honest, this took me a long time to firstly design, 3D print, and then assemble. So I've come up with some really unique ways on how to assemble this and how I came up with this idea here. So I just want to share firstly with you with the design of it itself. You can see here that they have these little domes, or these little divots for each LED. That is absolutely purposeful for this project in itself. The main reason why I did that is because you can see that the LED light, as it spreads out, so for example this one, all the LED colors blend together, but I didn't want that. I wanted to keep the LED light separated and kind of constrained to its own area, but still take advantage of the space around the LED. So that's why I've come up with this idea here, and you can see here that when the LED is on, that it's kind of constrained to that little dome area that I've created. So not only is it super functional with holding the light within that area, but it also looks really amazing as well. So the design I've gone is this type of radial design where it comes out and it spirals around. Now, for me to show this project as sufficiently over a video, I thought, well, how can I create this and show you guys exactly what this is on the inside and how I wired it up? Because I think it's really interesting. And this is my little sampler over here, and it did start off with just creating like this mesh, or this version which didn't have a shell. And you can see here that essentially what I've done is just laid the LEDs out in a spiral motion. Now there's 10 LEDs to each line, and then there is 20 lines altogether. So on one side of this face, there's 200 LEDs, and all up there's 400 on this one and 200 on this version here. So this one is really fun to do. However, it was super tedious. This one probably took me about 6 to 8 hours just to solder. So each one of these LEDs is individually soldered together, and you can see here that they've got a bar in between each. Now this just alternates between positive and negative, and each line just shares that positive and negative side, and they all come together, and then they're linked with the digital in and digital out of each pixel to create those magical animations. Then I thought, well, how could I display this kind of this version here where it didn't have a shell, really hard to mount it onto, and I had this beautiful piece of timber, so I decided to create this kind of hollowed negative version of the shell on the inside, and then I had the positive on the outside. So this has been pretty much my labor of love for the past 6 months, just getting these together, getting them working. These are communicated, so the power and signal is just via the bottom here, and then it goes through to the rear where I have an ESP32 embedded within the timber itself, and that's just powered easily by, I can just power it by an iPhone brick or any 5-volt channel. These really don't use a lot of power. So I think this one here uses about 2 amps of 5 volts, and this one is half of that again, so about 1 amp 5 volts. And that's pretty incredible, especially for these larger pixels, and they do put out a lot of color. I don't run them at maximum, they don't need to. They're actually quite bright and really uncomfortable to look at for long periods of time. So in a nutshell, that is my donut project. It kind of looks like something from underwater, and I did design the base for this one on my CNC. This is using red cedar timber, absolutely beautiful, and I've created this kind of flow-on effect as if this was kind of rolling down like some type of hills, kind of giving it motion because as it spins around, and hopefully kind of creating some motion within the sculpture itself. So they're my biggest projects that I've been working on so far, and they are just beautiful. I haven't seen a lot of people using the 8mm LEDs. Now, putting these together, it has taken so much time, and it's something that I probably would not make a huge amount of, just because they do take a lot of time. It's like 10 hours per side for each one of these donut sides. So, and you might be saying to me, hey Miles, you can already buy the 8mm LEDs already in like a chain. Now the issue with that, I did try it on this little project here, and I did try and install them on this, and I'm going to show you the reason why I haven't used those type of LEDs and why these ones are much better to use than those daisy chained versions. So this one here is a little one I've kind of created mainly for today's video, but I wanted to kind of show you the concept with, well, firstly keeping the colors within itself, but also using those 8mm LEDs. Now this one I think is using, this is 7x7, so just under 50 LEDs altogether. This one is a really simple version of these ones here, but this one's really cool in itself, and I really love this one because it's kind of, I call this one the pet LED. And in my head I kind of envision this to be some type of like a Tamagotchi style of LED where it'll respond to different things and you have to cater it to different times. However, I don't have the coding skills to come up with that, but it's just using WLED, and you can kind of see here I've separated into different animations. When you click the button, it will do different animations based on that. If I hold it down, it will go red and start flashing. Single click just puts it into like a rotation of effects, and a double click will put it into this rainbow effect here. So this one I really like, and this one's I was considering of selling as like a DIY kit where you'd come with the shell, all the electronics, and it would be up to you to solder it together. Now this one was really easy to do. Once again, it just comes in 2 parts in ESP32, and on the inside, and what I didn't say about this project here is that I use copper tape for all of my main channels because these don't use a whole lot of electricity. I've wired this together just using copper tape for my my positive and negative lines. So I thought that maybe that this is something that people might enjoy putting together themselves and then programming it themselves. It's just powered by USB in the background, kind of looks like a little tail, and it has an eye on there. Now I did use a red LED button on the front. It doesn't have to use an LED button on the front, but it was just much easier to see, especially if it was dark. This one connects via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi as well. So really cool stuff that you can do with these, but super pretty if you have them, you know, next to your desk while you're working. It's something that you can get mesmerized and get distracted with very easily. But I quite like having these on the bedside table where you can have it at nighttime while you're reading a book or something. It can create some really lovely effects that flows around that can reflect off the walls or even the roof or even just in the corner of the eye. It's quite calming to have something like this, and depending what effect, it can certainly give you more energy or less energy as you go through. And that's why I also love these big ones too. So this one here, the donut one, what I really like about this one is that you can have some really cool effects on the front, and if it's sitting up against a wall, you can have that white reflection off the wall, so you can kind of take advantage of this two-sided object itself. One thing I also forgot to mention with this one, I've coded it just like a single flat LED panel, and so the idea is this has 20 LEDs all the way around. If you consider it as a flat panel, it would just have 20 rows of 10 LEDs, and all I've done is got that and curved it around to make a circle, and that's how I've been able to program this quite effectively, and I've just mirrored it for both sides. So super easy to put these things together. Now I wanted to dive into, I'll show you this project. This is a really simple project, and I was kind of just having a play around with this this concept. This is using similar kind of filament LEDs like this one, but these ones are much more flexible than these ones. These ones break super easily. I probably wouldn't use these ones again, but these ones are fantastic. Now I'll plug this one in for you so I can show you. I just need the 12 volt. So this one here, you can see that I've decided to use an RGB effect, very similar to how I use these ones, but using a circular disc, you can do some really cool things, and the colors will kind of mix together and create different colors as you go. So my main idea was that in this central circle here, it's a piece of perspex that I end up seeing, and you can see on the back end of it, it is just got this like concaved or a cone shape, and it allows all the colors to kind of be mixed in and then projected forward. So and then this dish around the outside kind of came up with the same idea and mixed together. So this was an interesting project. I thought, oh, this would be great to see it together, but it really doesn't satisfy me overall. I think the idea was there, but the execution maybe not so much. So this was also pretty cool, and I thought I'll just show you because you might have some better ideas ideas on how I could take this further, or even how you could do this for yourself. So I quite like this idea, but certainly maybe there's a better way how to do it. So let me know your thoughts, pop the comments in below. And now moving on to probably one of the last LED projects that I've been diving into is using these 30-watt LEDs. Now I'll show you what these are. Now a 30-watt LED is pretty substantial when you're talking about LEDs. Now they come in a board like this from AliExpress. They come with the LED themselves and then a little control PCB as well. And if you consider, I think one of these LEDs is about 0.5 watts and this is 30 watts. So putting all these together is pretty incredible and you can get some decent light out of it. But running these for full power for any more than about a minute ends up soaring in temperature and burning out the LEDs. And I almost did that before I turned it off and realized that it was a bad idea. So you can kind of run these sufficiently, probably at about 60% or 70% of the actual wattage comfortably, but using them at full wattage, you do have a lot of heat issues. So I thought, well, what can I do to help suppress a lot of that heat? The idea with this is that it had an LED on the front. Behind this, and you can see in this assembly video, I use a fan and a heat sink. Now the heat sink was just CNC cut out of aluminium. That's just on my CNC as well. So it's cut it out and I've been able to mount that successfully just with a 4010 fan. And that creates enough heat dissipation to keep this cool. So it runs successfully about 60 degrees. And I've also included an ESP32 in this build as well. Now the issue with using a 12 volt system with a 5 or 3 volt ESP is that you get a lot of noise or issues with your signal, and it's something that you certainly can't just plug an ESP into one of these lights and use. So I followed the directions from the WLED community in how to set up the best electronics for using an ESP32 with a 12 volt system. So there was a little converter to use. So I created my own PCBs which had everything together, as well as a little buck converter or a drop down converter for the power, so I could use 12 volts with my 5 volt ESP32. And looking at this all together, it's a pretty mean machine. So this one can output a lot of light. I'm going to show you just in a second of how intense this light is, and especially compared to a lot of my lights I already have in the garage, this is quite comparable to the wattage that I'm getting out of some of the other lights. So just give me a moment, I'll pop this on and I'll show you. All right, so that is the light when it's turned on. I'm pretty sure this is only probably about 20 watts. It's probably only 2/3 of what this can output, but it is pretty serious. I'm not too sure what I want to do with these yet. I was considering them having kind of at the back of me in some of my videos as a bit of a rear or a bit of a hair light source, just to light up the environment a bit more. I did make it with these little mounts. You can kind of stack them together and have them go all at once, but I'm still thinking about what I was going to do exactly with these 30 watt. I did buy them because I was more curious about these type of LEDs and about just the intensity that can come out with them. But anyway, I'll park that idea and I'll think about them a little bit further and see what I can do with them. But I'm really happy that I'm able to get them up and going, and they work really, really well. So the best part about it, at the back of them, I've put a channel out so they can kind of daisy chain. I would say that this one would be my master LED, that this one would then, the other ones can just daisy chain from this single one. So I can just hook these on and they can daisy chain. So that's my second one on. I've got red continuously, but you get the idea anyway, and I can just keep on daisy chaining these. Now it's really important, because you are using about 2.5 amps per LED, that you've got to have a power supply that can certainly run these. Now this is just working exactly just like one of these little LEDs here, and it's controlling them separately, just like the WS2812 chip. And so I think it would be quite incredible to have all of these lined up together and being able to do some really cool effects with some super bright lighting. I was also considering of making like a moving head, so that means putting it on some type of gimbal which had 2 axes of movement, and you can kind of move around and do different effects. So ideas maybe for another time, but you certainly get the idea, and I hope that you've enjoyed kind of diving into some of these experiments today. And I'd love to know your thoughts about some of these LEDs, if you've used them before, or maybe if you want to use them, or how to get them. But it's a really cheap way of making your own lighting, or even coming up with some really cool effects there as well. So I'll just turn these off so they don't overheat the room. And already this is getting just a little bit warm, but if I did have that on full capacity, I'll probably only be able to run that for about a minute before I'd have to detach it. At the end of the day, I wanted to show you guys what I've been up to with these LED projects, and maybe even inspire some of you to continue or make these for yourself, and maybe even make them better. But I'd love to hear your comments. If you've got any comments about how I could develop these even further, or if you want to use some of these for your own designs, you know, that they're ready to go. I feel like I should provide just a little idea or a seed of an idea that maybe flourish into something else somewhere else by somebody else. I really wanted to take this idea a little bit further and create this out of a different product than just plastic. So I've got some really cool ideas coming up with that, and maybe I'll share that down the track. Love to hear from you guys. If you've got some ideas or want to share anything, feel free to leave a comment. I've also got a Discord channel if you want to jump on there, and we can chat LEDs, CNCs, anything new tech. So feel free to jump on. I've put those links below. But until next time, guys, I hope you enjoyed today. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.